All right. Hello and welcome to the Lost Confederacy channel. This is week 5 of the 13-week fiscal program of recovery for American prisoners of war. Yeah, myself, Chief Biko. Today we have Chief Alligator as well as Chief Quietwater. And here we focus more so on that first letter in the acronym APOW, which is American. Before we get started with today's readings, definitely want to give you all an update. As you all know, for those who don't know, follow on this channel. We like to provide proof of claim in regards to the emails that we've been sending to these congressmen and women. Those of you all that have been doing in the chat, salute. Those of you all just here and just viewing the work as well, salute to you all for gaining the knowledge. But again, we like to be transparent. And in regards to the emails, we actually got a response from one of the Congress members in particular, the David Scott, Congressional Black Caucus member here in Georgia, the Clayton County area. One of his staffing members, I believe his name is Duro Haynes. And I'm going to share my screen so you all can see this brother here. And again, showing this again as proof of claim. As you can see here, staffer in Congressman David Scott's district. So this is the brother I was able to speak with over the phone in regards to some of the questions that we posed in the email. One of those questions, again, if you all have the template, we'll probably drop that in the description as well for those who want to, put in the work and just, reach out to these individuals, since they are supposed to be servicemen and women and service the community that we are supposed to be a part of. But asking them these questions, and, he went on a long list of so-called accomplishments that David Scott has done in particular for Black people, when in regards, one of the questions was, why has he not done anything specific for Black people, even though he's a member of the quote unquote Congressional Black Caucus? So some of the highlights that he listed off was some things as far as scholarships for HBCUs, land grants for Black farmers in particular. And then when it came to just miseducation amongst our group in particular, they deferred to the Board of Education for Georgia in particular. But there's one question that I wanted to get them back on track with, which was, why has Congress never defined the words Black, Negro, Colored, or African American in law? And what Mr. Haynes stated was he did not know. And that's a problem. Do you see the problem, people? So we have a staffer for a member of the Congressional Black Caucus that does not know why Black in particular has not been defined in law. And that is the problem in itself. So how can you, one, list off accomplishments for a specific group of people that, two, has never been defined in law by this government? That's a contradiction in itself. How do we even know that these are going to the so-called Black people if the so-called Black people have never been defined in law? So this brother was able to give me a number to the district office, and I'm gonna read that off. So if you all, want to contact these members, because again, these are servicemen and women who post to service our communities. That number was 202-225-2939. And again, that's 202-225-2939. And asked and told me that since he did not know the answer to that question, again, why has Black, Negro, Colored, African American never been defined by Congress in law, to contact the actual DC office to see if they'll be able to give me an answer. And again, this is the staffer for this particular gentleman, David Scott, who's been probably one of the longest members of the Congressional Black Caucus that's currently within that caucus. But that just leads me, all of those things just lead me to some news that came out today as well in regards to, something that was brought to or made public on this individual's birthday, and that's going to be this here. So Biden signed a proclamation, and if anybody in the channel, especially people in the chat, when we was going over, the Lyndon B. Johnson videos, we all pretty much familiar with what a proclamation is. It's an announcement. And for those who are, not familiar or just, need a refresher, I'll go ahead and play this video, which we was playing pretty routinely when we was going over that 1968 Civil Rights Act. So I want you to hear from the horse's mouth, the president at that time, Lyndon B. Johnson, and what he says a proclamation is. So we can all make this come together.
Volume's low. You got to turn up your volume on it.
Gotcha.
Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Play it back.
Still low.
Still low. Let me try it now.
I shall never forget that it is more than 100 years ago when Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. But it was a proclamation. It was not a fact.
So boom, right there. We just heard it from the president's mouth at that time. And this is him, 1968 Civil Rights Act, also known as the Indian Rights Act. And so when we go and see this here, Biden signs proclamation to honor Emmett Till and National Monument, basically with a statue. Again, more symbolism for our group, but nothing specific for our group. This is just another slap in the face. And they did this on Emmett Till's, what would be his 82nd birthday. Now, let's walk back in time 3 months prior to this. So we got July 25th, June 25th, May 25th, April 25th is when his accuser, the woman that lied, Caroline Bryant, passed away, April 25th of this year. So 3 months later, President Biden signs a proclamation to build a statue. Again, this Caroline Bryant didn't have any jail time, didn't have any charges placed against her. Basically, no punishment was done to this woman. So everything is just, it is what it is when it comes to the European that lied on this individual that they're making a statue for. But again, a statue, not law. And as we continue to walk this down, because we know what a proclamation is, just an announcement. And if we look at this Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, and what we're going to do is run a parallel and make this all tie together between this act and the COVID-19 hate bill. So we see here, introduced January 4th, 2021, passed a year later in Congress, made law. Now let's take a look to see if there's anything specific to Black, Negro, colored, African-American, anything that would be considered our group of people. So we had this text, and I actually pull up the PDF, and what we're going to do, make sure this is the right one. Yep, March 29th. If you all can see in that top right-hand corner, just going to do a quick search for Black. Can you all see where it says not found? Good, okay, perfect. Now let's type in Negro, nothing. African, nothing. Colored, nothing. And American, nothing. So in name, it says Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Bill, but nothing specific to the group that was actually being lynched and killed in town squares. Nothing in particular, right? But if we draw a parallel to this COVID-19 hate bill, which again passed much earlier, within 90 days of it actually being introduced, we'll see that the word Asian pops up multiple times, 8 to be exact. So being specific in regards to who this bill is for, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. So do you see the problem, people? This is the same thing that was ran on us when it came to the Civil Rights Acts. Not being specific when it came to bills that were supposed to be, or laws that were supposed to be for our group of people, but then on the other hand, be very specific when it comes to other groups of people. And this is all coming full circle because we have people who are supposed to represent us not know the answer to why we have never been written into law. How can you have a Black caucus that does not or is not defined in law? They have never defined what Black means. So they can say, well, I did this for Black farmers. Who are Black farmers? According to law under the system. They don't know because it's never been defined. So that's the issue. And I'll let you all kind of build on that, and then we can kind of take off into our readings for today.
Yeah, it's just the same game being played, and we just have to wake up. Just the simple fact that it's a proclamation. Again, the Asian hate bill or COVID-19 bill was passed into law. It was signed into law. So they just, in our face, just blatantly do these, just tokenism type things to just give us something to just shut us up for a short period of time and then just move on to the next situation. So it's doing no good for us. We're not moving forward with these proclamations and, these holidays that are just given to us. So we just have to wake up and understand that it's the same thing that's being played over and over and over. There has been no change.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with both of y'all. In reference to Emmett Till, like you said, that lady died a natural death. So the reality is no crime that was done prior to 1968 or 1964, when segregation was ended by the United States government against the real American, there's never going to be a court case. The reason why she was never tried in court is because we were not citizens. And the issue is we have a lot of people who are in public servant positions who are highly schooled but uneducated. And so they say the word racism. It's not racism. It's you were military brainwashed through school to believe you became a citizen through the 14th, 15th, and 15th, 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, and there was a civil war fought for you. If you go with that belief system, it doesn't align with the laws of this government. Let's not forget Tulsa's reparations case was thrown out this month as well. Why? That happened in 1921. That's before the civil rights era. We have to understand that as a group of people, we were not citizens during the Red Summer of 1919 or 1920, 1921. So this idea that we're going to get justice in the current status that we're under is delusional, is juvenile in its thinking. And if you can go back to that Congressional Black Caucus member real quick, what week are we on in this goal that we set to actually have a public servant come on the platform and ask these questions? Are we at week 4 or 5?
I believe it would be week 4.
4.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're 4 weeks in on this goal. The goal is to get a public servant from the Congressional Black Caucus on this channel and ask them 3 simple questions and cite to the 1968 Civil Rights Act. Can you pull that up real quick, or do you have it pulled up, Chief Biko?
Yeah, 1968.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, give me one moment.
Because in addition to asking people to send emails to your representatives in the district that you live in, we want to be very clear why we're sending emails and why we're asking 3 questions. So we are moving forward with your phone conversation that you had this week. That's great. We'll add something on the community page as well about that step, getting closer toward our goal. But right here in the 1968 Civil Rights Act, 1 week after Martin Luther King was assassinated by the United States government, under Title II is 4 definitions for Indians. What we're simply asking the Congressional Black Caucus is, where is the definitions through Congress signed by the president for all of our nicknames? Negro, Black, Colored, and African American. Where is the definition of what Black means, as the fourth definition shows under Title II, under Rights of Indian? Where's the Black court defined by Congress? Where's the powers of self-government for the Black, Negro, or Colored defined by Congress? Where's the Indian tribe, or Black tribe, or Negro tribe, or Colored tribe defined by Congress? We know it doesn't exist, but we have to expose this hypocrisy. We're not going to get remedy under our current make-believe Wizard of Oz status. That's where I'm at on it, man. So you're going to get statues like George Floyd. You may even get a statue for the 3 survivors from Tulsa after they pass, right? It's going to be the same play. They can only give us statues, parks, recreation centers, frivolous holidays. But as far as specifically protecting that group of people, how can they when they never defined who said people were? That's my part on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just again, just thinking back this past fiscal quarter, because we're now into the third fiscal quarter, we had that Juneteenth celebration that did not apply to all of us. Then right after that, we had I believe that's when the affirmative action. Then we had the Independence Day for the European. And then right after that, we had the case of Tulsa, Oklahoma get thrown out. So now we have a statue of Emmett Till and his mom, Mammy Till Mobley, I believe. So now what's going to come next? So you see, they'll give trinkets, symbolism,
Right.
and then they'll come right behind it with something major, usually in law, or something replacing a law, amending a law. So again, we're seeing the play, and that's why, again, as stated by both Chief Quietwater and Alligator, it's important for us to continue to do this and ask these questions, in particular to those that's supposed to be our representatives. And we'll continue to do this again until we reach our goal to have one of these congressional Black Caucus members on here so we can ask them the specific questions in a public forum, since they are public servants.
Right.
Same questions we've been posting within those emails. And with that, I'll go ahead and jump into this week's inventor. And for this week, we have Albert C. Richardson. And for this invention, it is the insect destroyer. So he pretty much came up with this invention. It kind of reminds me of one of those, I forget, probably closely related to like a John Deere machine or something that kind of can kill the weeds in your yard. But in particular, this was supposed to destroy any insects, pretty much brush them off, I'm guessing any type of thick forestry that you're going through in order to make sure that the land wasn't being taken over by any particular bugs, especially if you're like a farmer or anything like that. This was, the date for this actually is February 28th, 1899. And that patent number is 620362. So again, that is 620362. And Albert C. Richardson actually has a couple of inventions, all pretty much not related. So he was a man of many skills, of many industries. But this one in particular just kind of stood out today. Just something I was like, oh, shoot, a bug destroyer. Me in particular, I don't like bugs. So raid all day or something that's going to destroy them, I'm with him on that one. So this one, again, just another invention from another American that created an industry that we do not control at this point.
Can you go down to the description section real quick just to see what he wrote about it? What was his purpose for creating it? Where it says the invention relates to improvements in insect destroyers.
Correct. So the invention relates to improvements in insect destroyers. The object of this present invention is to improve the construction of insect destroyers and to provide a simple, inexpensive, and efficient device adapted to destroy insects of plants and trees without injuring the tender shoots or foliage. So without injuring the actual plants itself. The invention consists in the construction and novel combination and arrangement of parts, and hereinafter fully described, illustrated in the accompanying drawings and pointed out in the claims hereto appended. In the drawing figure 1, it is a perspective view of an insect destroyer constructed in accordance with this invention. Figure 2, it is the longitudinal sectional view. Figure 3, transverse sectional view. And figure 4 is a vertical sectional view of the cross-shaped coupling and removable caps being arranged on the arms thereof. So as you see, basically to eliminate the bugs without actually destroying the plants itself.
Right. That top paragraph, I just wanted you to read that just to get an idea where it says the object of the present invention.
Mhm.
To improve the construction of insect destroyers, here's the key for me, and to provide a simple, inexpensive, and efficient device. So those that were farmers in that time that were owning their land and farming on their land, it was probably easy for him to sell that product to a farmer because you're not going to have to put a lot of money into investment to purchase it. And it's going to be highly efficient versus having manpower actually out there, you know, spraying pesticide or whatever they were doing. I just wanted to throw that in.
Correct. Great point. Great point. With that, we'll go to our Dr. Carter G. Woodson quote for the day. I believe he said quote 10.
Correct.
All right.
So today, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, author of what we know as Black History Month, quote 10, Negroes do not need someone to guide them to what persons of another race have developed. They must be taught to think and develop something for themselves. It is most pathetic to see Negroes begging others for a chance, as we have been doing recently. Do not force us into starvation, we said. Let us come into your stores and factories and do a part of what you are doing to profit by our trade. The Negro as a slave developed this fatal sort of dependency and restricted mainly to menial service and drudgery during nominal freedom. He has not grown out of it. Now the Negro is facing the ordeal of either learning to do for himself or to die out gradually in the breadline in the ghetto. And I chose this quote today for several reasons. I'll start with the last section I just wrote. There are no more ghettos. Okay, so they've gentrified and tore down ghettos, right? So that's gone. Bread lines we're watching in our face. Illegal non-citizens are in bread lines now. So the Negro is not even really in the bread line. This dependency that the Negro has, that's the whole point of us sending these emails. That's why we're reading these documents, to educate ourselves and enlighten ourselves and hopefully build our self-esteem. It's hard to follow along with us on this channel and remain mentally dependent on another group of people. So over 100 years ago, Dr. Carter G. Woodson was forewarning us to think for ourselves. Going into other people's stores, we're there now. I've lived long enough to watch the transition from our stores being owned by look like us to now people from India pretty much running every corner store in North America. I don't care where you live at. But I'll stop right there and let y'all share on whatever it is that y'all want to build on from quote 10.
Yeah, I think it's important, being that this was about 100 years ago, you know, and everything is the same today in regards to what he was talking about. Everything is just still just as relevant as it was back then. And the fact that we're still trying to get it is bothersome. You know, hopefully people will continue to support us, and, you know, will hopefully gradually more people will jump on the bandwagon of information and know what's been done to us, know the history of what we've been through, and another 100 years won't pass. You know, change has to happen. It has to happen like yesterday. So I think that by us doing this weekly and just, you know, reiterating these quotes by Dr. Carter G. Woodson is important for us. The information was same then and same now. And I'm, just we haven't moved the needle much. That's what I'm trying to say.
Definitely agree on that. Definitely agree with both of you all. The dependency factor, probably even more now than it was 100 years ago or when this quote was first written. So as we can see, we're going in the wrong direction just in that sentiment alone. But definitely agree with what Dr. Carter G. Woodson is stating, within this quote. We've been facing this ordeal to either, learn to do for ourselves, or instead of gradually, dying out in bread lines and ghettos, just dying out in the streets or just dying out in general as a group. We always bring up the fact they've already projected quote unquote black wealth to be at zero by 2053. We already are seeing just within the last quarter them taking things away that was supposed to be specific for our group, with affirmative action, throwing away particular court cases that have nothing but proof in them. So we're seeing already that they're on schedule in regards to hitting that goal of 2053, because that's a goal. If you're projecting something to happen in a particular time, then you are already practicing foresight for that to happen at that time, or at least before that time. So again, it's up to us to actually say, okay, we can no longer be dependent on the same system that is projecting us to be destroyed. We have to do for self. And I think one way that we'll probably click for a majority of our group of people is if we actually hear it from this system itself. Basically, again, just saying, hey, will you define who the Black, Negro, colored is in law? And if you don't, that's an answer. If they don't reply, that's an answer. If they do reply and they say we will, that's an answer. Because at the end of the day, we're going to get an answer. If they do say, okay, we'll define you all, then now we're talking about 250 plus years of, atrocities, land being taken, killings, murder, pillaging from this government that we would need to be prepared for. If they don't acknowledge that, then we have an answer. We understand our place underneath this system. So again, at that point, I think that'll be pretty much the straw. But until we get there, still need to practice, self-preservation. Next, we'll have the legal definitions and maroon historical quotes, and then we'll jump into the Cointel Pro.
Okay, so legal definitions: number 1, American, indigenous to America. Number 2, descendants, one who follows in the bloodline of an ancestor, either lineally or collaterally. Number 3, slavery, a situation in which one person has absolute power over the life, fortune, and liberty of another. Number 4, prisoner of war, a person, usually a soldier, who is captured by or surrenders to the enemy in wartime. Number 5, school, any institution at which instruction is given in a particular discipline. Number 6, education, an enlightening experience. Number 7, recovery, a return to a normal state of health, mind, or strength, the action or process of regaining possession of something stolen or lost. And then the maroon historical points. Number 1 was a person escaping slavery, seeking freedom, or breaking the law. Number 2, providing unity and strong defense came first. Number 3, maroon leaders were first and foremost military figures. Number 4, maroons established guerrilla warfare, planting sharp sticks in thick grass. And number 5, maroons knew their European enemies' language, defenses, and plans.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you there, Chi Quiet Water. Go ahead and jump into where we stopped off last week. I believe it was page 22. Let's see here. Yeah, because we ended off on there. Those programs. All right, so we'll start on page 23. editorial comment. Move this out the way. And I'll go ahead and pop us off for this week. Load this up, make it a little bit bigger. All right. So secret FBI memo. Did J. Edgar Hoover go too far in his orders issued secretly to expose, disrupt, and otherwise neutralize the New Left back in 1968? Ramsey Clark says yes. So do other supporters of the civil liberties who feel that the grand old chief of the FBI overstepped inherent freedoms when he instructed field officers of the agency to open an active file on the New Left movement and its new activists. In 1968, in the 1968 memo just now brought to light, Hoover wrote, "The purpose of this program is to expose, disrupt, and otherwise neutralize the activities of the various New Left organizations, their leadership, and adherents. It is imperative that the activities of these groups be followed on a continuous basis." Hoover did not name the organizations, but he apparently had in mind the SDS, Weathermen, the Black Panthers, and the Yippies and other militants. Hoover said the FBI must frustrate every effort of these groups and individuals to consolidate their forces or recruit new or useful adherents. Then he added, consideration should be given to disrupting the organized activity of these groups. How this will be done was not made clear in the memo, but he made it clear that the program was a sensitive operation and should be closely held secret. So as we can see here, again, not naming, but people can connect the dots in regards to what they're stating within this these paragraphs here. Black Panthers was a part of that New Left group that he was referring to in regards to neutralizing, disrupting, and what was the other word he used? Neutralizing, disrupting, and exposing that particular group. Now, in the previous pages, again, just to kind of summarize, if for those who are new, what it was exposing was basically all of the tactics that had been done, not only by Hoover, but also being approved by the president at the time, which was Richard Nixon. I believe burglary was one of them, fraudulent signing of documents, so forgery was another tactic. So we're seeing all of these things. And last week we brought up the fact of, forgery and all of these illegal tactics that were being done by, again, the highest policing authority of this land, and how that affected multiple groups of our people as far as just being imprisoned unjustly. And we brought up even the topic of how, they would put something in the news saying, okay, this individual did such and such, and us as a group, instead of rallying behind them and asking the simple question, show us the facts, we'd be like, oh man, well, I knew it was something going wrong with this brother or something like that. So just kind of going along with the narrative instead of asking the questions that needed to be asked. So that just kind of paints the picture where we're at when reading this particular paragraph. Anything you all kind of stood out to you all?
It's the same thing today in regards to, when something happens today, of course, they put us on Front Street, on mainstream news, and they list all the bad things, that they may have done in their past, and we jump right on that bandwagon, and we don't support from day one. We go along with the narrative that we're fed instead of being, right or wrong, standing with the united front and just supporting our people like other, groups of people do. We jump right along with that narrative that's fed to us, and that's why we are where we are.
Right.
Yep. I like that one little sentence that's this fragment of a sentence where it says consideration should be given to disrupting the organized activity of these groups. Their biggest fear is for us to be organized. Because if you're organized, you don't have to beg, bum, and borrow from another group of people. That's it right there. Don't let them organize. Don't let them come together and have mastermind think tanks and come up with forecasts and come up with plans and then come up with practical strategies how to get from A to B. That's what's jumping out to me. That's the whole United States government biggest focus when it comes to our group. Do not let them organize. Let them be solo. And if you are able to organize, then they've got people who look like you, and they may also have people that don't look like you that they will send at you to challenge you. But that's where you have to remember who you are. That's why you have to know who you are and who you come from and where you come from. We're not extinct as a group of people on this land as the American for a reason. We didn't birth all these inventions for the world to benefit off of, for not just by happenstance. We are the greatest people on planet Earth, and the only reason that we're not displaying that on the planet called Earth is because we have other groups of people that are, their goal is to not let us organize. Once we realize that, we have to reverse engineer it and organize.
Absolutely. Like you said, just something stood out, just doing it on the individual level as well. If everybody was organized individually or had their personal lives organized, then having infiltration would be even more difficult, because we'd be like, okay, that's not how we operate, because everybody is operating in that organized matter. So it would be easy to call out or point out those flaws when they did try to submit, certain agents, plants, and things of that nature. So that's a great point. I'll continue here. We all remember the anarchist activities of some of the New Left groups, the burning of campus buildings, the stories of bomb factories, the killing of participants whose peaceful revolution suddenly turned into violence. During these very trying days, Mr. Hoover apparently decided to fight fire with fire. It will also be recalled that Ramsey Clark was probably the worst attorney general ever to serve the United States, that he sat in his office and watched the burning and sacking of downtown Washington, that later, when he had been succeeded as attorney general, he carried his own peace plan to the North Vietnamese as an emissary of the anti-war extremists. Of course, Ramsey feels that the FBI strayed off base, but it is doubtful that he has ever told about, it was doubtful that he was ever told about the memo. It is unthinkable that Mr. Hoover, the exponent of law and order, would deliberately create incidents in the name of the far right. Definitely, that's a lie. We just saw multiple stories from multiple sources within the FBI pretty much telling that Hoover was trying to, again, cause disruption, expose these individuals, and cause disorganization. So we'll continue here. Yet if counterattacks were necessary, we believe a large body of peace-loving Americans would have said amen. The secret memo will be argued for a long time by extremists on both ends. Next page here, drew a blank. Television newsman Carl Stern may have been looking for something sensational when he demanded under the Freedom of Information Act to see a memo issued by the late J. Edgar Hoover in May of 1968, ordering agents of the Federal Bureau of Investigation to keep an eye on the New Left movement. Mr. Stern may now be disappointed. The memo shows only that Mr. Hoover told the FBI to do what obviously was demanded by circumstances in the United States of America at that time.
Oh, what you got right there? What you just read in that paragraph, May of 1968. What happened May of 1968?
What's in that?
Where was our group of people at May of 1968?
Burning stuff up because of what just happened to Dr.
Martin.
King.
Yeah, Martin.
Correct.
Right.
So we're
protesting, right?
We're a month after Martin Luther King has been assassinated by this same government, and you got the head of the FBI talking about based on the circumstances in the United States of America at that time. So you want to investigate what they call the New Left is the Black Panther Party. So you've already killed a leader, and you still are fearful of their organizing. So King was a part of a separate organization, right? He was SCLC, headquartered right down here in Auburn Ave in the Masonic Temple in Atlanta, Georgia. That really had nothing to do with Black Panthers. That's a whole different organization. So when they cut the head off the SCLC, now that gave the Black Panthers a chance to start getting headway, if you will. So again, we're just acting out of self-preservation. That's the only reason I wanted to bring up in that paragraph. You've killed King, and now I'm sure the people at that time were under no delusion or illusion that the United States government was attacking them. Just 4 years prior to 1968, they just ended segregation. So this is all new for you going to Lenox, right? Depending on where you stay, right? Now you can cross the tracks, right? Tracks. Now you can go to that restaurant that you could never go to growing up. So I just wanted to just kind of highlight that these attacks are coming after they killed King.
Correct. Great point. Anything, Chief Quietwater, before I continue?
No, I'm in agreement. I'm on the same page with you guys.
Okay. I'll continue here. There had been 159 disturbances serious enough to be classified as riots in American cities during the summer of 1967. The Kerner Commission reported in March of 1968 that militant organizations and agitators had sought to encourage violence by playing on racist emotions. April saw the Columbia University campus turn into a battleground by the Students for a Democratic Society, whose chapters then began fomenting riots on scores of campuses across the country. In this atmosphere, Mr. Hoover alerted the FBI to try to neutralize organizations and individuals who had spout revolution and unlawfully challenged society to obtain their demands. So I'll just pause right here. As we see, it states April of 1968. Again, we just highlighted April 4th, they killed Dr. King. April 11th, they passed the 1968 Civil Rights Act. We have other groups and organizations up in arms about their particular agendas, whether it be, Vietnam at that time or whatever the cause may be, but in particular for our group, up in arms about the killing of Dr. King. And what we get in this next paragraph is that Hoover is saying or alerting the FBI to neutralize any organization and individuals who spout revolution. So it's a revolution when you want to stop your people from being killed, and it's unlawful when you challenge that against the society.
And the
or you
sad thing
demand
about
that.
it is they recognize our ability to make something happen, but it's just us who don't recognize the power that we really have. If we just continue to, come together, like back then, they were doing what they had to do in regards to the protests that, made some changes, but just continuing it on until something happens, not stopping, not taking holidays, not, taking these proclamations, but continuing on until the goal is met. The goal is reached, is that we don't realize the power that we have when we come together.
Correct. Now, I even say we're focusing on the wrong, definitely branch in regards to trying to accomplish these goals. I have a lot of people focusing on executive branch or judicial when we're highlighting that Congress makes law. Congress is the people that write the operating system of how everything, whether it's the executive and judicial branch, is supposed to pretty much work. So if we're not within that operating system, then what is that telling us? Nothing will ever work for our particular group because we're not written into their system. So even going about it that way, they had the right idea when it came to civil rights acts, but again, they lack specificity. And we're seeing that trend continue today when we just highlight the Emmit Till anti-lynching bill and compare it to the COVID-19 hate bill, which they are specific to a group, which is that Asian and Pacific Islander. So again, it just all comes back full circle. And again, it's highlighting they don't want to see that. They want to neutralize that organization because they say, okay, well, they got super close this first time. thank goodness we were able to make them be broad in their lack of or definitions in particular, be broad in their definitions and not specific to a group, because that opened up Pandora's box that we see now we can take advantage of. So yeah, we can just see how, again, them wanting to disrupt any type of organization, and any type of organization that is speaking on revolution, basically change, because that's all that is, they're going to be looked at as a threat. I'll continue here. It was clear the target was not a legitimate political movement, but a sinister, organized attempt to sow havoc in our society. If there were any FBI memos showing that Mr. Hoover failed to understand the menace that was loose in the streets of America in 1968, Mr. Stern would have a pretty good story. As it is, he drew a blank.
Hold on 1 second. Go back up right there. All right. He just said in that bottom paragraph that Mr. Hoover failed to understand the menace that was loose in the streets of America in 1968. Then y'all just built on the fact that in the previous paragraph that Mr. Hoover alerted the FBI to neutralize organizations and individuals who spout revolution and unlawfully challenge society to obtain their demands. Why would it be unlawful when in 1964 you ended segregation, 1965 you did a Voting Rights Act, and then 1968 you did an Indian Rights Act? Could it have been unlawful because that group that was called Negro and Colored were never written into law during that period? So you being out in the streets and organizing, what if those people knew that Indian was defined in the 1968 Civil Rights Act? And what if they knew that we are the American Indian and that they were replacing us with people from Asia? What if they were organizing to combat that? But
I don't think it's a what if. I think they did know. You know, I don't think that was even a question.
You think they knew?
I think so. Yeah, for sure.
So if they
but
knew,
of course, the indoctrination, that's not how it was told to us, you know, or that's not how the story goes. But yeah, I definitely think probably more people knew than not.
so we can see how the United States government can tell the world when it pertains to our organizing or protesting or uprising, why they can go into fear mode as if it's an attack on their government. As per their government, we were never included in writing. So anytime that you try to revolutionize this government politically, if you've never been defined, you are waging a type of war, which is why the National Guard and militarized police have always, not maybe, have always been deployed for you and you only.
Yeah, it's always going to be looked at as unlawful. Because like you just stated, never been written into law. So that in itself is going to make it unlawful.
And we got to wrap our minds around that. It's not racism.
Well, that's right. That's right. I'll continue here. Let me see. FBI memo a blank. Let me get any closer to this side. I just cut off like that. All right. So television newsman Carl Stern may have been looking for something sensational when he demanded under the Freedom of Information Act to see the memo issued by late J. Edgar Hoover in May of 1968, ordering agents of the Federal Bureau of Investigation to keep an eye on the New Left movement. Mr. Stern may be disappointed. The memo shows that Mr. Hoover told FBI to do what obviously was demanded by circumstances in the United States at that time. I think this is pretty much kind of the same as what we read earlier. Let me see. There have been 159 disturbances serious enough to be classified as riots in the American cities during the summer of 1967. The Kerner Commission reported in March of 1968 that militant organizations and agitators had sought to encourage violence by having or by playing on racist emotions. April saw the Columbia University campus turn into a battleground by the Students for a Democratic Society, whose chapters then began fomenting violent riots on the scores of campuses across the country.
All right. So what's really going on right there in that moment on these college campuses? Remember, they're going to take the stance that it's acts of war with our organizing and basically practicing self-preservation, but they just ended desegregation in 1964. So wouldn't that be the first graduating college kids that were going to now these what used to be all white campuses? Now you're the first 20 to 30 Negroes on said campus. Wouldn't you be whooping motherfuckers' ass that want to call you nigger and try to spit on you? If we just go back in time and understand why they're fighting on college campuses.
Right.
European student don't want you there.
Correct.
But they're saying it to the wrong one. And then when they get their shit split, all hell break loose on campus. That's basically what I'm reading in that. Y'all got it.
Go ahead, Chief Quiet Water.
You on mute.
But I was definitely getting the same thing, similar to that, where them just trying to talk about a different, well, not even being specific in regards to what they were pretty much being violent or exciting riots against. Like you stated, kind of trying to pretty much just cover up that. But as you just stated, just ending desegregation 4 years prior to that. So yeah, all pretty much at this time, just coming to a boiling point, just with everything. Because again, April, we talking about Dr. King being assassinated, April 4th. So not only is that happening, but as you just stated, you probably have some European on campus calling one of the Americans a nigga, and coming right off the back of Dr. King getting killed, yeah, tension's gonna be super high, especially in regards to our group. So anything that's gonna be said will definitely pop off something. So yeah, I can definitely see that. But again, just covering up or having that under the guise of whatever organization they want to put it underneath, kind of similar to what was the organization in 2020 that just came out of nowhere? I forget the name. Antifa, something similar to that. So yeah, I definitely am in agreement with you. I think she's still connecting the audio. I'll continue though, and then bring Chief Quiet Water in. In this atmosphere, Mr. Hoover alerted the FBI to try to neutralize organizations and individuals who spout revolution and unlawfully challenge society to obtain their demands. It was clear the target was not a legitimate political movement, but a sinister, organized attempt to sow havoc in our society. If there were any FBI memos showing that Mr. Hoover failed to understand the menace that was loose in the streets of America in 1968, Mr. Stern would have a pretty good story, as it is he drew a blank. So yeah, just pretty much again, kind of just basically another transcript of what the previous page had stated before, but again, just highlighting, what was going on at that time.
I'll pick up while her audio is trying to connect.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Hoover's memos, publication by the FBI of 2 memos by the late J. Edgar Hoover has lifted the lid just a crack on a counterintelligence operation about which, although it ended more than 2 years ago, the public almost certainly will be hearing much more. Scant as the details now are, revelation of the documents is sufficient to suggest ramifications so far-reaching as to make exposure both imperative and disturbing. You can give me like more, yeah. The memos showed that in May 1968, Mr. Hoover ordered a campaign against the so-called New Left, which was to go beyond a role of gathering information and aim at direct disruption of the movement. Involved were agents seemingly expected not merely to infiltrate and keep tabs on potential troublemakers, but even to provoke action, presumably to provide grounds for counterattack. The program, however, far it actually went, continued for 3 years before Mr. Hoover called it off. That right there just triggers me back to when they admitted in this document that the FBI was unlawfully breaking into our people's houses. They were unlawfully locking people up until they couldn't make bond. They were also unlawfully planting drugs and weapons on our people. And here in this paragraph, they're provoking a fight or some type of retaliation so that they can counterattack and again, lock you up and press charges. So it just further shows your non-citizenship, right? We're being included in this time because now they're opening the doors to the world. I look at this like a business. The United States government started off with 13 colonies. Those 13 colonies turned into states. They decided that they were going to go ahead and incorporate from sea to signing sea, right? By the time the 1960s come around, they said, we're going to take this business worldwide. That's why you get a desegregation in 1964 and a Voting Rights Act, and it's not specific to us because it wasn't about us, even though we were the ones that were fighting and resisting. The United States government decided to go worldwide and allow people from all over planet Earth to become citizens, which you pulled that up, Chief Biko. Can't remember the 10 steps to naturalization. We'll cite back to that before we end this video. It's a real common sense question we all have to ask ourselves. What person in your family has gone through the 10 steps of naturalization? Every immigrant on this land that is a quote unquote citizen of the United States government, if they go back through their family tree, there is records of that person that went through immigration. Why are we the only group of people that don't have that? Why do we have to track our people by birth certificates that have reclassified us every generation from colored to Negro to Black? And then you have to cite to census records to see what your people actually had, or you have to go to the Dawes Roll to see what your birthright was. Shout out to, I can't think of his name. I got a brain fart. Dr. Claude Anderson. We've got a short on our Instagram page where Dr. Claude Anderson gives you his Dawes Roll number, and he knows he's Cherokee by blood. Judge Joe Brown, he knows he's Choctaw by blood. He came out of a Choctaw woman. So what does that make him? Dr. Carr has admitted that when he traced his family tree back, he's got Choctaw in him coming out of Tennessee. So it shouldn't be, yeah, you got $5 Indians, but you also got a lot of scholars that are teaching us that are admitting that they're on Dawes Roll or they're on. Why we can't track immigration records since we're supposed to be from another land? It's really not hard.
It's that simple. I mean, it's very, very simple. You know, it's not a mysterious thing. You know, people who say that they can go back to their great, great, great grandparents, but then want to, you know, go the whole Pan-African route. It doesn't make logical sense. It just doesn't make logical sense. Why we're in this state of confusion and delusion in regards to who we are and where our people came from.
Correct. I'm gonna pass it to you, Chief Biko, to get your thoughts on. I just want to add in one last point. I'm in a process right now where I can go back to a specific town in the country and I can see generations of my aunts, my grandparents, great aunts, great uncles, and aunts. So that's the evidence. You know what I'm saying? Like, what more, going back to what you said, Chief Quietwater, why would you claim to be Pan-African when you can go to a country town and go to a church and go behind the church to the damn cemetery and your whole family tree back?
Dating back to the 1800s.
Oh, yeah,
Correct.
Why would you want to go any further?
Correct.
Like, what's the point?
Just look at your family plots.
Mm-hmm.
Like, seriously, that's your genealogy right there. That's your records right there. But no, just speaking on the point in regards to what was being said, yeah. What they say, provide grounds for counterattack. They was creating their own, creating evidence to again have proof to say, hey, now we can go ahead and attack this person. Again, we stated last week, forgery. It was actually signing people's names on documents, sending it to Russia and having it verified.
Wow.
If that in itself doesn't show you how far they will go, I think they even had a machine. They said something, they referenced a machine or some type as well. So if they had, again, they're using all of these tools, resources for a particular group, because they said they did that against, I believe it was a particular Black Panther member or somebody. But again, using these tools to manipulate their way to have just cause, although illegally, this is what they're doing. So it should be not far-fetched to believe, they're continuing to do this today. Just on a more advanced level at this point.
All right, I'll go ahead and pick up. Good build on that one.
Niggas
Quite aside from whether any of the FBI's techniques against radical activities of that period were illegal, a matter of dispute, the memos raised some clearly disturbing points. One effect of their unveiling, obviously, is to reinforce the conclusion that Mr. Hoover had in the later years of his long reign over the agency exceeded his function and authority. He took upon himself the judgment of whether individuals or groups of various political persuasions were to be permitted to operate freely or were to be treated as threats to national security. We can highlight that and bookmark that. He basically did what the hell he wanted to do against one group of people. And that ties into your last statement, Chief Biko. None of this stuff that we're reading is unlawful or illegal when it comes to us, because we've never been written into their government. This form of government came from kings and queens in Europe. The government on this land was confederacies. So when you hear words like subject and citizen, that's coming from Europe. That's Europe's way of handling its said citizens. They had peasants and lords and subjects. They had debtor prisons. There was no prisons in America before the Europeans set up the United States government. This is all foreign to us.
We had our own systems of, I guess, correction system, I guess you could say, in regards to how we dealt with our own issues.
Correct.
The Confederacy.
Correct. Going back to that, when we was going over the Constitution, the Iroquois Constitution, didn't state anything about prisons. Basically, it's like get down or lay down. If you didn't want to be a member, cool, depart. But if you were trying to intrude on territory, then you'll be dealt with as an enemy. So yeah, it wasn't anything as far as keeping people captive and things of that nature. Let me see where we at.
Similarly, and even more crucial, the published documents lend credence to charges that the FBI itself had been carried beyond its assignment as an expert detection and law enforcement agency and turned into an instrument of political harassment and suppression. Such suspicions are not fostered by the memos alone. The FBI has dropped prosecution of some cases in recent years rather than disclose information to the courts about its activities. That certainly leaves reasonable grounds for fearing that the agency may have become far less interested in law enforcement than in other functions too nefarious to be publicly acknowledged. So it's kind of like, keep the people dumb. We cannot go through a discovery phase in a court about what we've been doing against the Negro, which was our nickname at that time. We've read the surveillance document with Dr. King. Up until the moment he died, the FBI had him under surveillance. So they're admitting right here, it wasn't law enforcement. The FBI had one group of people that they were trying to suppress politically. Y'all thoughts on that?
It's always the political them with the political tactics. We
Mhm.
fall for them every single time.
Correct, correct. And just again, going back to what we highlighted earlier, political, because during the 1960s, that was the closest time we've ever come to being written into this law. Again, we lack specificity. So again, that's when you was able to open up Pandora's box, as Chief Alligator alluded to, and pretty much go not public, but worldwide in regards to the business structure, and allow everybody to come in off of our hard work. But since then, it hasn't been pretty much too political because that hasn't been our arena. As I stated earlier, we've been focusing more so, and when I say we, the people who are supplanted as our leaders of the group, focus on, the executive branch or the judicial branch, when we're seeing we're highlighting every week who makes law, and highlighting every week or referencing every week either that 1968 Civil Rights Act or one of the acts within the 1960s, because that was made law. And now we're seeing everything kind of either being in alignment with that or being reversed from some sort of action. So when it comes to again, like you stated, that political agenda as far as suppressing that, I mean, it is clear why they were highlighting it, because they like, damn, they came way too close to actually getting something that would cause us to pretty much destroy, or cause us to destroy ourselves. When I say us, this system causing
Right.
itself to destroy itself.
And
Yeah, we don't
they're
have
able to
leaders.
do that too, is because we don't know how the system works.
Right. And I'll
Mhm.
just for my clarification, we don't have leaders. What would be your definition of a leader, Chief Biko, Chief Quiet Water? Because we use that word too loosely. What is a
Mhm.
leader to both of y'all briefly?
Um,
Someone who
Go ahead.
can really accomplish goals. I mean, in the simplest form, someone that can come, lead people or a group of people to an end goal, set an agenda and accomplish it.
All
I'd
right, what
agree
would
with that. I'd agree with that. Somebody who um puts in the actual time and work and effort and actions to reach said goal, and is able to get others to, um, I would say, buy in to their actions. So not necessarily just telling somebody, okay, this is what we need to do, but actually walking, uh, actually walking the actions that they're talking about, and pretty much blazing that trail to lead others to follow them. So that's what I would say.
I agree with both of y'all. The only thing I would add is you can't be a leader without knowledge. If the people who look like us are unaware of the 1968 definitions of the Indian, you're not a leader. The leader has to have knowledge, information. And then, like you said, Chief Biko, that person has the gift or the ability to apply the information that they're learning. Right now, we have people who are fancying themselves as leaders that don't even have the information, which is why we're sending emails and making phone calls to them, because we're basically calling you out. You claim to be a leader. You claim to be a lot of things, but you're not informed enough. That's our problem right now. We don't have leaders. What we have are a bunch of entertainers. And entertainment can come through religious beliefs. Entertainment can come through sports. And entertainment can come through political theater. But nobody since the 1960s has educated this group of people on what we're reading right now. Why is it? Well, let me say it correctly, because I'm sure there's individuals that have been doing it. But what I'm saying is the people who we've been trained to look at as leaders, why don't we all should know in detail about the civil rights era? We should know that hands down, like the back of, because it's our history. So the fact we don't know it, and we have to create a YouTube channel and systematically put information out, right? And we're not taking claim to it because it's public record. But that's our biggest problem. We got to stop calling these people leaders. You don't know enough to lead me no goddamn well.
Right.
You know how you look at somebody and you listen to him and he got an idea and you like, nigga, I wouldn't follow you.
Yeah. Blind leading the blind.
We'll meet each other up by we'll meet in about 20 minutes.
Yeah. Blind leading the blind, man.
Yeah.
We don't have leaders.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and finish this off. Clearly, there are grave dangers involved here. If the methods hinted at in the Hoover memos proved to have been used, the FBI was in some respects not much removed from the secret police tactics of totalitarianism. We got to look that word up. Please. Even if the agency only appears so to a substantial segment of the public. Who's that substantial segment? The FBI will have suffered a loss of respect that can only impede the performance of its proper task. And in either case, the entire affair offers dismaying evidence of how thin the line can be between protecting national security and undermining the nation's very foundations of constitutional democracy. So we'll stop right there for today.
Yeah.
This whole paragraph is a fucking lie, because the foundation of the nation known as the United States government was not written for us. We keep trying to make believe include ourselves, but we're the only people that can't find any public records coming out of this government defining this people. Now you can find it in the judicial branch, because the judicial branch interprets the law. So they will use the word Negro, colored, black. They'll use it in their opinions all day long, but that's getting lost in the sauce. We talking about the branch that makes the law. You can't find it. It's not there. And they went a step further and created a black caucus. How? If one of y'all looked up the definition of totalitarianism, and if you can pull up the 10 steps for naturalization, we'll close out on that so we can understand what they were saying. Y'all can build on what I just read.
So we got a totalitarianism form of government that theoretically permits no individual freedom and that seeks to subordinate all aspects of individual life to the authority of the state. I mean, shoot, that's exactly what we were going through in the Jim Crow era, wasn't it?
Right.
Actually being subordinate to individual states, because as we saw, states had Jim Crow's laws specific for Black people, colored, Negroes. We saw we had a whole list, and I'll actually highlight that. I'll see if I could bring that up, where we're saying Negroes could not be serviced by white nurses or things like that, being specific. And this was state by state. So again, that's exactly what our group was underneath. So when we say military occupation, is that not this?
Right, right.
Is
Trying
that
to call
this?
it all everything else but what it is.
Right. Go one step further though on what you just, I'm glad y'all put up this definition. This was in 1920 that Mussolini decided to create the state of Italy as a totalitarianism form of government. Okay. Why is that important? Who did they get the blueprint from on how to do business like that? United States government.
Right.
Did we forget about the Red Summer of 1919? So you wouldn't have a Hitler or a Mussolini. They got it from the United States government and what it was doing to the American Indian.
Wow.
That's like Chief Biko just said, that's what Jim Crow was. And they said, you know what? We're going to try that shit over here in Europe, in Italy. We see what y'all doing over there. You done classified them. You done assigned them to a certain area.
I can't find that thing.
You running them out of towns. You know, we talked about this last week, about that country singer that dropped that song. It's amazing how we just walk around like we didn't, like we wasn't running the city of Atlanta. Like we wasn't
Right.
running, like we wasn't running Fort Lauderdale. Like we wasn't running all these cities at one point. Like we just act like we didn't get ran out our shit and ended up getting prisoner of war food packages from the Red Cross. Like we really just gonna act like that didn't happen to us.
That's literal war.
Correct. Correct. So again, we're seeing whole definitions being created off of what was done to our group of people by this government.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what we just read here. And then if we go to that 10 steps of naturalization that we were referring to earlier, did anybody on this panel within chat have any family member go through these 10 steps? Did any of your family members or your lineage determine if you were already a U.S. citizen, determine if you are eligible to become a U.S. citizen, prepare your form N400 application for naturalization, submit your N400 and pay your fees, go to your biometrics appointment, complete the interview, receive a decision from the USCIS on your form N400, receive a notice to take an oath of allegiance, take that oath of allegiance to the United States, and understanding your U.S. citizenship. Did anybody on the panel or anybody in the chat, as far as you, yourselves, or your family members, go through these 10 steps?
Yeah, let this sit here for a minute as we go through, because I'm going to answer no. As someone who's done the work pulling up my family's records, I see no naturalization papers, no immigration papers saying that we came from somewhere else. I see census records and Dawes Rolls records, but I don't see no naturalization records. Now, what a lot of us will try to do is go up under step one. Let's go to step one. It says, determine if you are already a U.S. citizen. Here's where you got to know United States government history. If you are not a citizen by birth, or you did not acquire or derive U.S. citizenship from your parents automatically after birth, go to the next step. So some people that are from our group will say the birth certificate makes us citizens, correct?
Mhm.
Okay. If that's the case, explain anybody that was born before 1964, why were they not U.S. citizens?
Mhm.
Right.
You couldn't vote.
Correct.
You were segregated. You didn't get any kind of veteran benefits until the Vietnam War. So when we ask these logical questions aligned with our history, we can't hold on to the lie that we were made citizens through the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. But if you call the Veterans Administration Office tomorrow and ask them, when does benefits kick in for Blacks when it comes to time served in war? They're going to tell you it starts in Vietnam. So what about the Korean War? What about World War I, World War II?
What does that mean? You're not a U.S. citizen.
Right.
You weren't a U.S. was in their military,
Mhm.
and
Right.
you were segregated. How we forget that yeah, they'll give you a mop bucket to have you mop up the barracks, but they you were in, but you weren't in.
You're a temp worker.
Right. Right.
You didn't get no
With
benefits.
no benefits.
Correct. You're a temp worker. You only became full-time after the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
Yeah.
And during the Vietnam War, and look how medieval it was. Right after they end segregation and give the right to vote, then they turn around at the same time and do a draft.
Yeah.
So you're taking the kids that grew up segregated, and now that you're ending segregation, I'm going to make you fight for the government that was just segregating you.
That you just became a citizen of.
Now let's go a step further, because now we're talking about drug abuse. If that teenager did not want to fight for this government growing up in segregation, and he was trained to kill and went to Vietnam and kill people, what do you think his mental mindset was when he came back to America, knowing as he got older and his brain started to mature fully what this government did mentally,
Right.
that you fucked over my mama, my daddy, my grandparents. I got the benefit of desegregation, but then you made me kill for the same government that was killing my people.
Mhm.
And we scratch our head why we had addicts on heroin and why there
Mental illness.
mental
Mhm.
dilemma. Is anybody in the chat saying that they went through this process, that anybody in their family went through the 10 steps to naturalization?
No, nobody.
Because this act came out in 1790. So are you trying to say that this applied to us in 1790? That's before the so-called Civil War, y'all. I'm just asking questions. If step one applies to us, this Naturalization Act came out in 1790. So are we saying in 1790 any babies we had were going to be U.S. citizens? And if we're saying yes to that, then what's the purpose of the Civil Rights Acts?
What's the purpose of the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment? What's the
Right.
purpose of all of these things that supposedly were for our group of people? See, again, you can't tell one lie without telling another. Basically, is what we're highlighting here.
What's number 2 say? Determine if you are eligible to become a U.S. citizen.
Review the naturalization eligibility worksheet to help you decide if you are eligible to apply for naturalization. I'll click on this to see what pops up.
So has anybody that's watching now or may watch later, ask yourself the question, have you ever read this document? Has anybody in your family worked this document, filled out this document?
Really, what would be the purpose?
I mean, if we claiming to be citizens,
Yeah.
so let me say it like this. The African know about these documents, the Jamaican know,
Absolutely.
the
Right.
Bahamian know, the Indian know, the Asian, Kamala Harris parents know.
Mhm.
Let's go there. Let's go there for Kamala Harris,
Mhm.
a Black congressional caucus, but her daddy from Jamaica and her mama from India. She came out of an Indian woman's womb. You don't think her mama and daddy got naturalization papers? So tell
Absolutely.
me again how you supposed to be Black. So Black is not a status because she's not a part of our bloodline or our lineage. Y'all following me? I know y'all following, but we're just
Correct.
talking. We got to start looking at it for what it is. It's like it's all belief. It's all make believe. And not one person in the chat, Chief Quietwater, is saying they've been through this.
Nope.
So I don't know what
What's that?
how many people are even aware of this process that's listening to the video right now? How many of y'all even know what steps immigrants have to take?
I definitely do not. Again, folks are immigrants.
Right.
Lineage didn't come from that.
And if the last step will, if you scroll down to the last step, we brought this up with Donald Trump when the NFL was protesting and taking a knee during the Pledge of Allegiance before games. This is why there was such an outrage, because what we are ignorant to as non-citizens through procedure and paperwork is we didn't understand that all immigrants got to pledge allegiance to that flag.
Mhm.
So we're scratching our heads while we're watching the NFL and we're like, why y'all trying to spin it? It's about police brutality. Why y'all making it about the flag? Now do you understand why Donald Trump made it about the flag? Because nigga, that's the last step to become a citizen. You can't kneel on the last step. The last thing we got to do is swear your ass in front of that flag. Are y'all with me?
Correct. Correct.
What's y'all thoughts on that? That shit went right over our head when they made a big deal about that flag.
Yeah. It just shows again,
Right.
they're all immigrants.
Right. And it shows just our ignorance, you know. Yeah, we, you know, in elementary school, I know when I was in school, if you didn't stand up to say the Pledge of Allegiance, you know, you got in trouble, or your parent had to write a letter stating why you they didn't want their child to stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance, you know. So it's always been right in our face.
Yep. Same here. Same here. You had to have an excuse, whether it be a religious excuse or something, of why
Right.
you weren't standing. But yeah, it just goes again to show you who they are and who we are. If they are up in arms about an oath, again, a pledge of allegiance to this flag, the United States, that shows who they were. That shows that they had to
Right.
go through this process. And they're saying, damn it, I went through 10 steps to become this. You're not going shit or disrespect the process that I had to take.
And step 8 says what? Receive a notice to take the oath.
Yeah, it's a ceremony.
Oh, and there's a naturalization ceremony. So you would think that there would be a picture or something on, you know, in some kind of archive in your family about the family member that did the ceremony. Or you're gonna go to that video to see what it looked like, huh?
Face of America. Let me see. Getting early in the nation, types of ceremonies. You got a judicial ceremony and administrative ceremony. Let's take a look
You
at
become a
this.
citizen. Click on when you become a citizen.
Once you become a U.S. citizen, you have access to additional benefits and services. So you became a member. Please see this website for additional information. During the ceremony, you will be provided with additional information and representatives for the different services may be available to assist, including applying for U.S. passport card. You will get an application for the U.S. passport at your naturalization ceremony and a U.S. citizenship welcome packet. It is also available at most U.S. post offices. You should allow sufficient time between the naturalization ceremony and any planned travel to receive your passport. You'll be able to register to vote. I'm just going to read off the highlighted points. Update your social security record. And yeah, that would be about it. And just listen in details. So these are the benefits that you get once you receive.
So you reverse engineer this. What they did was gave us a social security card, gave us a birth certificate, and now allow us to register to vote. However, it says once you become a U.S. citizen, you have access to additional benefits and services. Okay, who comes to our schools or our communities, i.e. Black Congressional Caucus members? You see what I'm saying? So it's like that's why we say we're quasi. 1 foot in this thing, we're 1 foot out. Because we have the illusion of inclusion because you got a social security card. That's a monetary card.
Right.
That is going to get a percentage of your income for any income that you receive over your life period. Right. So that benefits the United States government. That birth certificate is the same thing. Everybody knows now that shit's being sold on Wall Street. So that ain't new. But there's a lot of key components that the immigrant goes through that we don't go through, and they know that. Because when they talk to the nigga will be like, I don't know what the hell you talking about, what that shit is. So we're understanding why the immigrant thinks they're better than us, some of them, not all of them, but we understand why they think they're better than us when they come over here, because once they get that citizenship status, they actually have a higher status under this government than we do.
That's true.
Any closing statements that y'all want to do? Good build today.
Definitely a good build. I just say for us, at least on the panel, gonna continue to ask these questions to these representatives and work on reaching our goal. Again, having a public servant on our channel and answer questions from the public. So I think that'll be a great opportunity for not only us on the panel, but for those in the chat and people in the community to hear it from, again, the horse's mouth on why these, again, nicknames, as you stated, Chief Alligator, that we've been called have never been defined in Congress, have never been written in law, even though we'll see the Asian and Pacific Islander be written specifically in regards to their bills, but when it comes to the Emmit Till anti-lynching, no mention of Black, Negro, colored, or African American. So why is that? And I think the only we need to, hold these representatives or so-called representatives of our group accountable and answer these questions.
I definitely agree. I think that is important, and definitely thank you to everybody who's been supporting us, and especially thank you to the people who have taken the time to send the emails. I mean, it's just an email, you can copy and paste and send those emails out. And I think if more and more people continue to do it and make these people answer to us as they are supposed to do anyways, we can possibly get somewhere, with this whole thing that we're trying to do. So definitely thank you for support. Just going to continue to learn and unravel this information.
Mhm.
I'll close out with, if you can go to that 1968 Indian Rights Act definition, just to hammer it home. We don't have to make this any harder than what it is. All we're asking, or I'm going to ask the people in the chat. This act was written 7 days after Martin Luther King was assassinated. This is the 1968 Civil Rights Act. This is Title II of that act. We were told in school that the Civil Rights Acts pertain to a specific group that had churches bombed, dogs sicked on them, the fire department hitting them with water hoses. These people was being run out of towns. Their kids were being killed, i.e. Emmit Till. What we're asking is this us being defined under Title II a week after MLK was king? Are these the definitions for us? Are we supposed to have tribes, powers of self-government, courts, and are we the Indian that's defined here? And if we're not this, and if this was not intended for us, who has the courts, the governments, the powers of self-government, and are claiming to be Indian? Because there's only one group of people that put that work in. So you're telling me that the people who put the work in during the 60s didn't get this 1 week after MLK was killed? But we have a Black caucus 3 years later in 1971. So we're asking, where's the definition for Black? You got one for Indian. Where is it for Black? And we're asking you to send an email and ask the question to your Black Congressional Caucus public servants. This is common sense. We already know the answers. All we want to do is get them to tell us. And we hope that y'all feel us on this. It's just that simple, y'all. They bait and switched us. They killed King, replaced us with another group of people. We're supposed, okay, look at it this way. You're supposed to have your own court system and your own government. So when we be talking about we need to get our own, this is our shit. Now it needs to be amended somewhat because Title 19, we need the Title 19 part where we're supposed to correspond with this government when it comes to criminality. We can amend it, but this was our shit. That's what we're trying to say without saying it like that. I'm gonna come straight up the middle with it. This is our shit. It's only one group of people that work to get desegregation done and get a Voting Rights Act done and get a 1968 Civil Rights Act. You come from that group of people. You got another group of people that didn't put the work in, running governments, running casinos, claiming to be you. How else can we put it to you? Chief Quietwater, anybody in the chat feeling what the fuck we saying and what we showing on the screen?
Yeah, everybody's in agreement. I mean, yeah.
All right, we'll rock out next week. Salute to everybody that was rocking with us today. We apologize for starting a little late. We had a little technical difficulties. But once again, man, it's about getting the information out. And if it ain't in writing, it's your shit. That's why we always cite to the records.
Mhm.